All right, the first question is, what do you think started the desire for segregation?
Started the design. Straight up racism. I think what stands out the most, not necessarily is the most interesting, but I think what stands out is if you compare it to policies today, today we have to use a lot of code words, or politicians or people in power or people that want to defend segregation where it exists. They use code words and they don't just come out and say it. But back in the 1800s, when people were racist, they just straight up said they were racist and created racist policies. And I think when you compare the two, I think that that's what's interesting.
Transformation of society and new technology all seemed great, and it is. But even in times of great growth, parts of society are still held back. Post-Civil War, one would think blacks would be free, but it's not that simple. It's actually almost the opposite. Segregation and racism were stronger than ever.
Firstly, the Jim Crow's laws were set up. These were what really caused segregation during this time. The Jim Crow system was enacted in the 1870s. These laws created the saying, separate but equal. Bathrooms, water fountains, and entire buildings were separated between whites and blacks. More often than not, the white utilities were better quality than the black ones.
U.S. versus CRUIKSHANK was a Supreme Court case that led to an allowance of violence and deprivation of rights against the newly freed slaves. Their citizenship rights, equal protections of the law, and several other 14th Amendment provisions were being deprived. This led to one of the most infamous forms of racial discrimination that the United States has ever seen. On December 6, 1865, the 13th Amendment was passed, which freed all slaves. Many people in the South who were pro-slavery were upset with this, obviously, and soon the Ku Klux Klan formed, or the KKK. The KKK spread mainly in the southern states. It was a group of people who were upset with Reconstruction-era policies toward African American rights. The Klan was a radical organization who worked to take drastic measures to restore white supremacy in the South. They tortured and more often than not murdered African Americans in lynchings. The members dressed up in white suits with tall caps and often operated at night. It was truly the worst aspect of segregation during the Gilded Age.
The 15th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution granted African American men the right to vote by declaring that the rights of the citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. Although ratified on February 3, 1870, the promise of the 15th Amendment would not be fully realized for almost a century. Through the use of poll taxes, literacy tests, and other means, Southern states were able to effectively disenfranchise African Americans.
Although slavery was legally abolished, the new practice that emerged put African American freedom into question yet again. Sharecropping. A landowner allows a tenant to use the land in return for a share of the crops produced on their portion of the land. After slavery was abolished, sharecropping rose up as a fine alternative for Southern plantation owners, as they got practically all the benefits of owning slaves, as they were still able to exploit African Americans for practically free labor. High interest rates and racist landowners kept tenant families indebted, and therefore forced to work for landowners for practically nothing, essentially maintaining slavery even after it was abolished.
In conclusion, while it was a time for great reconstruction, the Gilded Age was not the most progressive time. Although on the surface level things appeared to be much better, overall there was really no progress in the day-to-day lives of African Americans.
So in the South, after the Civil War, the white people in the South wanted to keep African Americans in conditions as close to slavery as possible. You can argue that there's also an economic element to it. They wanted to ensure that they still had an abundance of cheap labor, but ultimately I think it was racism because there were plenty of poor white people in the South they could have exploited as well, and did.
Do you feel any aspects of the Gilded Age, like segregation, is still apparent today?
I think definitely we have de facto segregation in a lot of places. It's not by law that says people have to live in a certain area based on their race, but we definitely still have predominantly white neighborhoods, predominantly African American neighborhoods. As a function of choice sometimes, as a function of economics, redlining policies that are in place to make it difficult for African Americans to move out of some predominantly segregated areas.
Raid Shadow Legends is an immersive online experience with everything you'd expect from a brand new RPG title. It's got an amazing storyline, awesome 3D graphics, giant boss fights, PvP battles, and hundreds of other never-before-seen champions to collect and customize.
I never expected to get this level of performance out of a mobile game. I mean, just look at the detail on these champions!
Raid Shadow Legends is getting big real fast, so you should definitely get in early. Starting now will give you a huge head start. There's also an upcoming special launch tournament with crazy prizes. And not to mention, this game is absolutely free! So go ahead and check out the video description to find out more about Raid Shadow Legends. There, you will find a link to the store page and special codes to unlock all sorts of goodies. Using the special code, you can get 50,000 silver immediately and a free epic level champion as part of the new players program, courtesy of the Raid Shadow Legends devs.